Cool. So let's go on to the screen share and how to do budgets in Xero. And I will just share my screen now and make sure that we can all see. So Beth, if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see that screen share. Okay, cool. So I'm in the demo company in Xero, which all of you can go into and play around if you want to. If you're looking for it, you can click on what would be your company name at the top here, search for demo company and go in, and you can play around with this demo company as much as you want. You can't break anything, and actually you can also reset the data. So if you kind of mess around with it, clear it, and then wish you could go and play around with it again, you can actually reset that data. And I think it automatically resets every 30 days. So regardless of what changes and things you make, after 30 days, it will go back to its original state and you can play around with it again. But what we're here to look at is budgets. And we've spoken about how important budgets are for businesses. They should align really with kind of your business plan. So you create the plan first, you think about your purpose, your goals, your vision, what your core values are, where you want your business to go. And that might mean certain things to you, like hiring a certain number of people or giving yourself a certain amount of pay or dividends or anything like that, so that you're getting out of the business what you need. And once you have that plan in place, you then should build a budget or a forecast that gives you the financials that guide you towards those goals, that mission, that plan you have. And the great thing about budgets is obviously it shows you where you deviate. So maybe you're spending more on something than you thought, or you're not spending as much on something as you thought. Maybe sales aren't quite hitting targets. But without those kind of insights, it's hard to see why maybe you're not getting as close to your end goal as you wanted. Where are you deviating? And it's also important to have, if you need to make sudden decisions, this year being a great example, things like furlough claims and calculating kind of, can you keep all your staff on board? Do you need to furlough them? Without a kind of a base plan in place that you can then tweak and see how things change as you make new decisions, it's really hard to make those informed decisions other than really just guessing and kind of saying, well, it feels pretty tough, so let's furlough everyone. You know, without looking at those numbers, you don't know for sure. So the budget manager in Xero gives us a really simple way of getting some numbers in, forecasting forwards, and then reporting what actually happens against that plan, against those forecasts. And that's that really powerful tool that we think everyone should have access to. Now, some of you know that we do kind of more detailed forecasting with businesses. We talk about a three-way forecast, which looks at the profit and loss account, the balance sheet, and cash flow. And those are really powerful because obviously the budget just looks at the profit and loss figures. And without the cash, you can be missing part of the story. So this budget manager approach in Xero is a good starting point, and it's a great way to get used to budgeting and planning and forecasting if you're not already doing it. And if you are, it's a great way to get them into Xero, so you can do the actual versus budget reporting. But if you want a bit more, if you need something that has a bit more detail and you want a bit more security about where your business is going, it's really important to do that three-way forecast so that you've got a really good idea of the overall picture of the business finances when you undertake these plans and changes that you want to. So inside the demo company, if you click on the accounting menu at the top and go down to reports, and you'll see the list of all the reports, most of which you're kind of hopefully used to. But one of the ones that you might not have looked at is this budget manager. So if we click on budget manager, which is always in that top left-hand corner under financial, it will take you through to this screen. And one thing I'm going to do is just click on this wide view here, which just stretches out the screen for me so I can see a little bit more information on the screen as I go. At the top, you've got a bit of a menu with some drop downs. Select budget effectively means you can create different versions of your budget. It might be for different plans, you have different scenarios, a best case, a worst case. What does it look like if we hire this person now or if we hire them in March? How does it change the outlook and the figures? So you can create and stack different budgets. The other thing you can do if you're an agency or production company is you can create budgets for each individual production you're working on or job and have those all in. And then you can report budget against actual just on that particular kind of production or job or task or whatever. But if you use the Xero tracking as well, and I'm not going to go into Xero tracking today, but Xero tracking is a way of making sure that different transactions get tracked against these jobs or tasks or projects or whatever you want to call them. And so we can have a budget against actual just for that as well. One thing to note, what it doesn't do is if you have lots of mini budgets, it doesn't necessarily collate them all together into one big budget for you, so you would need to do that separately. So you can select the budget, or you can create a new one if you're looking to create a different scenario. We're just going to leave it on the overall budget, which is the default in Xero. Then you can choose when you want to start the budget from. So this is defaulting as April. So this kind of demo company has a March year end, so it's selecting April to kind of look forward into the next year. You can select how many actuals you want. So you've got a drop down here for 3, 6, 12 or no months. And these are these columns on the left here. So January, February and March. So these are showing us the data that actually is within Xero already has been reconciled from the bank, posted from receipts and invoices. So it's actual data for 3 months. And the reason that's there is to help guide you in that process of making a budget. It's showing you what has happened to help you decide what may happen in the future. And then you can go on to the period. So that's effectively how long you're looking to forecast for. Generally, I'd say do a 12-month forecast. As soon as you go into 24 months, there's a lot of guesswork. And for this kind of simple budget, the chances of it being particularly accurate can get slimmer the further into the future you go. So the best place to start really is with a 12-month forecast. Now, one thing that we often do when we're working with clients is we might build up the detail separately, say in a G sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. So piecing together all the different assumptions that come into what your sales might look like. Maybe you look at things like weighted and contracted income, or retainers and event fees, or something like that, and you collate those together. And you might want to spend some time doing some detailed backing and calculation behind those. And as I say, we'd normally do those separately and then just bring the final figures in here. You can do that as an import. So at the bottom, you'll see you've got import, export, save and cancel. So you can export a CSV template, which you can then fill in and then import back in, and it will complete all of this for you. Because of the switching screens and things like that, and the fact that there's more detail in it, we're not going to touch on that today. We're just going to look at how you create a simple budget inside Xero itself. So you can see there are some numbers pre-populated in this sales one. Now what you can do is you can look at what's happened in the past. And I'm going to just stretch out these actuals to 6 months, just in case there's some seasonality in the business. And I don't just want to focus on quarter, I want to see what's happened. But looking at this, it looks like sales have averaged around £500. So those figures are in there. However, what we think is actually we're growing. This business we expect to grow at around 5%. So if you click on this green arrow, once you've entered a figure, it asks you to apply a formula. There's different things you can do. So you can apply a fixed amount to each month. So that's how we've got this 500 running all the way across. Or you can adjust by an amount. So you can say, I want to assume that we're going to add £100 each month. Or you can say percentage. So we think we're going to grow 5% month on month as this business goes on. If you click apply, Xero will automatically calculate those figures month on month, running through, growing that business for you by 5% and setting you that budget and those targets. It's the same rule effectively then for all of the other cells. You can either go through manually inputting in each of these blue cells, or you can use the green box to fill across. One other thing you can do, so say for example, we go down to here, and up until now we've kind of done our own accounts and things like that. But in July, we've decided we're going to start working with a really great accountant. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in here that our accountant is going to help us out with some bookkeeping, and that's going to start costing us £250. Now you can do that from partway through, and you still get the green arrow and say this great accountant doesn't increase their fees too often. They apply a fixed fee for me over a 12-month period. I know what I'm paying, so I can easily put that in and be confident of those numbers. And then it's the same with everything else going down. There's not a huge amount of information in this kind of demo company for the amount of data that's in there. But what you'd normally do is look at the trends you've got in these figures on the left and carry those forward. So things like cleaning might typically be £100. You can just apply that figure across and run it through. So it's important to run through, look at the headings that you've got in Xero, make sure that you're happy with those headings, make sure that you're happy with the numbers that you want to pull through and track through, and think about the changes you want to make in order to achieve that plan, and make sure that these numbers reflect whatever those kind of plans and assumptions are. as you work through and across, you'll see you then get to a total column. So this is a good kind of sense check of having a look and making sure that when you're getting to the end of your year of forecasting, these figures make sense. One thing just to note though, is that when you take out the actuals, this total does include the actuals. So when you are sense checking, just make sure you remove the actuals first, so that that total that you get is just for your forecast and doesn't include the actual data that came before. But then you can run through, make sure you're happy, make sure these figures all make sense for you. And when you're happy, you can press save. And that gets saved into the file there, ready for you. Now, what you can do next, and this is really powerful, is run that actual versus budget P&L report in Xero. Now, at the moment, most of you will know in Xero that we've got two versions of reporting. You've got some with this new icon next to it, and we've also got the old reporting. At the moment, there's no default template in Xero for the actual versus budget in the new template. So you have to go in and effectively create one yourself. And this is something that we're more than happy to do for you. We're very happy to go in and create templates and set them up and do that to help you out. But what you can do initially is go into the old profit and loss report where there is a standard actual versus budget. So you can see here under common formats, we've got a few headings that you can click through, and one is this actual versus overall budget. So if we click on that, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives us, for this month, a picture of the actual figures that we've recorded versus the budget that we've created in the budget manager. It then tells us for those what the variance is. So at the moment, we're over £6,000 up on our target, over 800% up on our target. And then it also looks at year to date. So it groups together from the start of your year. So I think for this business, I say it's 1st of April up to end of November. What are our year to date sales? And what's our year to date budget, and how are we performing against that? So it's a really powerful way to say, okay, how am I doing this month? And how am I doing over the entire year? And where are there things that maybe we need to look a bit more at? Are we underspending on advertising? Could we spend a little bit more to promote the business, based on where our plans were? What are we overspending on? For example, here, rent. What's going on with the rent? Has the rent gone up and we weren't aware it was going to? Have we been spending more on meeting rooms and we've kind of grouped it into there? You can start then digging into your numbers and finding out why your business maybe isn't performing the way you thought. Now, obviously, that could be a good thing as well as a bad thing. So it might be that you're doing a lot better than you expected to in your plans, but what can we learn? What has kind of been the catalyst for that improvement? Are there any learnings here? Have you spent loads more on advertising and see that's really paying off? So it's worth just having this report as a basic one in Xero that you can jump in to get those easy insights. And then if there are things that kind of jump out at you want to discuss, of course, you can give us a shout. And we're more than happy to look into them in more detail and help you work out any changes that you might need to make or opportunities that they're presenting in this report that you can make the most of. Right, so enough of me chatting on for now. Beth, anything kind of around budgets, in particular that kind of current climate we're in, that you think kind of people should be aware of at the moment?
Just keep an eye on when you're putting your budget figures in, kind of if you're using kind of net gross figures. So obviously for your wages, make sure you put your gross figures in, and kind of remember about pension. That a lot of people forget about the pension. NI isn't as important because of the employment allowance, but you need to kind of bear it in mind if you've got a lot of wages. And then also remember all your other expenses, they're going to be net of VAT. Which is why if you're looking at the actual when you're doing your forecast, that's why they might be a bit different to what you actually see coming out of your bank accounts, because they're net, they haven't got the VAT in. So that's something to bear in mind. And if you've got figures when you're looking at the actuals that are going up and down a little bit like a yo-yo, if you're just doing a basic budget, don't worry about that. Just average it out and just put it in. At least have something in there instead of nothing. They'd be my top tips, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly, because it accumulates over the year. So over the course of the 12 months, you should kind of average out to the right position. It will give you a good idea. You might have some months over and some months under, but hopefully it averages back to where you need it to be. I think the other thing just to kind of really focus on is just thinking about what you know is going to change. You know, if you are going to hire a new employee, you might have new staff costs. You might have to increase rent costs if you're in a co-working space when we eventually get back to them. You know, do you need to kind of think about equipment costs? Now, things like laptops don't go into this budget, but are there other things like software that would go with it? Maybe your sort of kind of IT and software costs are going to increase. They might seem like small amounts, but the more you can keep on top of those, the more accurate it will be. And it can get quite, I think you agree, when you kind of get into these and do them properly, there's a lot of detail that actually can go into calculating these and getting them right. But for now, it's just about getting used to having it, so that you can begin to glean these kind of little insights and help you run your business as effectively as possible. So, okay, Beth, any other kind of points you want to wrap up on budgets, or anything else that's kind of come to mind on where we are at the moment in kind of terms of furlough and COVID and things like that?
No, I think that's it. Remember, actually, on the budgets, if you are going to apply for a grant, put that in your budget, because they can be quite significant, especially if you're one of the industries that are getting locked down and getting paid kind of $3,000 a month. So make sure you kind of add those in, as Jonathan said, kind of try and keep on top of them, check them regularly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everybody. That's it for today. Kept to the 20 minutes just. Look forward to seeing you all next week. And if there's any particular topics you want us to cover, feel free to give one of us a shout, and we'll see kind of which ones we can cover off before we hit the Christmas break. Thanks, and stay safe, everyone.
See ya.